Hello, folks. This is a Deal by Me podcast where we ask guests to tell us your story. Your story can be encouraging, inspiring, and very transforming. We ask guests to share their experiences and events in their lives that others can benefit from. We're hopeful that you will share your experience and contact us on our website www.dealbyme.com, and let us know what you are going through that may help somebody else. And if you're viewing this podcast on YouTube, please leave us a comment and consider subscribing to our YouTube channel. Today we have with us Jennifer Seven, who is an amazing individual. She says that she loves sharing stories of resilience, using the power of forgiveness and gratitude to move forward. She is the co-author of a book about women that have gone through very difficult traumas, and yet they are unbreakable spirits. What a great guest we have for us today. Jennifer, again, it's good to have you share with us.
Oh, thank you so
Uh,
much. I'm excited to be here.
I want to just begin by asking you to tell us where you're located and just tell us a little bit of your background and what you're
Okay.
doing now. And then we will get into a nice little dialogue about
All
where
right.
you are.
Sounds great. Well, I'm actually what do we call it? The DMV, the DC, Maryland, Virginia area, but I'm actually in the Northern Virginia part of that. So some of us call it Nova.
Okay.
Yeah, and so professionally, I'm a health coach and a business owner. And I've been helping men and women get healthy, lose weight since, I think, since 2009. So it's been a passion of mine to help people get their health back and their lives back often. And alongside that, I'm a podcaster as well. And I was blessed to be able to be a part of that book, Unbreakable Spirit. And I'm a meditation teacher too.
Well, I note from your bio that you uh, are a meditation teacher. So let me just start off by just asking you this. Uh, what does a meditation teacher do? And share a little bit of this with our listeners to just let them know the type of person you are and what you do.
Sure. Well, it- that came out of a very difficult time in my life where I was going through a very difficult divorce and financial problems and feeling pretty lost. And I loved hearing, if you're familiar with him, Deepak Chopra, he
Mhm.
would do these 30-day or 21-day, 30-day meditations that you could follow along, and they always had themes. And so at the time, I started listening along to him, and his voice is so soothing and so calming. And that kind of started me on that journey of meditating for myself. And just as I went along on that path, I thought, gee, I would like to actually
Mhm.
dive deeper into this and I'd like to be able to offer it to others. And because again, I had this weight loss business, which is, I believe, so much about not just what you eat, when you eat it, how much do you eat. It's so much bigger. It's so emotional that I thought if I could bring meditation into that, alongside the physical aspect of losing weight, there's the emotional, mental, and tapping into our spirit. So I went to the Chopra Foundation and I went through the course and became certified. And I share it. I'm not out there a lot teaching classes, but it's just something I've integrated into the wellness part of my business to really help people kind of go inside a little bit.
So you're saying that your health and wellness classes, along with the meditation, kind of go hand in hand, or both?
Yeah.
Or okay, okay.
Yeah, absolutely. Because, weight loss is really hard for many
Hmm.
people.
Hmm.
And there's often so many emotions tied up with it. For women especially, I think there's so much shame and guilt, and we beat ourselves up. We know we're supposed to eat this and not eat that, but then we do it, and then we're mad at ourselves because we did it, and then we feel embarrassed and ashamed. So there's so many emotions going on alongside just the physical part of eating and losing weight. So I wanted to get people to start to calm down, relax. So meditation can be very relaxing, but what we're trying to do is really tap into our inner voice. So in the silence of meditation is where our own spirit can start to speak to us, and our bodies know what we need, but we often just don't listen to them. Our spirit knows what we need, but we don't listen. We can't hear it because the world is cluttered and loud and noisy, and we have something like 60,000 thoughts a minute coming through our brains, and it's often the same thoughts, and they're often very negative. And I'm asked all the time, well, I can't meditate because I can't stop the thoughts. And with the Chopra technique, we use what we call primordial sound meditation, but it's meditating on a particular sound. We call it a sound vibration or a mantra. The mantra doesn't necessarily have to have any meaning to it, but it's a sound. So when you're meditating, if you're trying to be silent and quiet, you're like, oh, wait, I've got to get dinner. I've got to go shopping. I got to this. Oh, wait, right. I'm supposed to be meditating. And people get very edgy and frustrated. But with this technique, when we find ourselves going off on these thoughts, we come back to that sound. And so eventually we'll start to dip into these little spaces of silence in between the thoughts. And that's where the magic is. It's that still voice is in that silence. It's like jumping into a pool of water, and when you come out, you have droplets of water on you. And you're kind of bringing that out of the silence back into you. You don't know that you're in that gap, because if you knew it, you'd be having a thought. So it's kind of funny. So the more you practice it, the longer you dip in, and the
Mhm.
more you bring out with you. And it's very transformational over time.
I know more about meditation mainly from my pastorate. Having pastored for almost 2 years, we always say, we want to meditate
Hmm.
before, as we read the scripture, trying to prepare for our messages. So I kind of get a feel for it. I never looked at it in the same light that you are talking about it, but I can understand exactly where you're going with that.
Yeah,
Uh,
and some could call it that still small voice is the voice of God,
mhm.
whatever your religion is or your belief system is, but it's tuning into what's true, the
Right.
truth.
I understand. I see exactly where you are. Uh, I I also note from your bio that you've experienced the challenges of a difficult divorce, bankruptcy, and
Yeah.
also health issues. And along that way, you found, pathway to healing. And one of the things you said, as I said earlier in the intro, you said, I recognize that our life is a journey and that we will always have obstacles to overcome. Would you talk a little bit more about that?
Well, sure. If I want to go back to that time, it was a very tough time in my
Mhm.
life, and I was very hurt, and I was very angry, and I was very scared. And I think I was becoming pretty negative, like, woe is me, everything's happening to me.
Mhm.
And I met this woman, and she said, she kind of coached me, and she said, here's what I want you to do. I'm going to give you this exercise, because I wanted to feel better, but I didn't know how to feel better. And so she said, I want you to get a notebook, and I want you to fill it up with statements of gratitude. And I'm looking at her like, you got to be kidding me. That's the last thing I feel like doing right now. I'm like pretty frustrated and angry and upset. And you want me to write good things? And she said, okay, I want you to start really simply. Like, I'm grateful I woke up this morning. I'm grateful I have a bed to sleep in. I'm grateful I have food to eat, a car to drive. And she said, but I want you to just do this, and I want you to fill the whole book up. Not that I had to fill the book up that day, but to start that practice and to get it to the point where you've filled up a whole book of those kinds of statements. And so I said, fine, great, sure, whatever, I'll do it. And I started. And that practice is one that I would highly recommend for everyone to do. And it can be really hard in the beginning because you're not feeling grateful, you're not in that place.
Mhm.
But science is now showing us that the mere act of thinking about being grateful starts to change our brain chemistry, and having gratitude makes us happier, and it expands upon itself. So you start and you've got, maybe you can only write 3 things down a day. I said, just start with 3 things in the morning and 3 things at night, or just 3 things in the morning that you can write down every day. And you'll find it begins to grow. Okay, so I'm grateful that I have the car. I'm grateful I have my kids. I'm grateful I have my pets. I'm grateful that my grass is green. I'm grateful I found that parking spot today when I went to the mall. And it just grows and grows and grows. And it makes you a happier person. And I believe that things begin to shift and good things start to come to you because you're focusing on what is good rather than what is bad. You're focusing on what you want to attract rather than what you don't want to attract.
Hmm. You know, I find your story really interesting because I identify with so much of it. And you say that you found yourself on a path to healing. That obviously entails forgiveness.
Mm.
So how does forgiveness create a path forward for individuals?
Oh, that's such a good question. And I feel so strongly about this. So I was pretty angry with my ex-husband, and I realized I didn't want to carry that with me. So I knew that I had to forgive him. And how I want to describe that is, I don't believe that forgiving him is saying what you did was okay, or what happened was okay. I'm not saying I forgive you, so what you did was fine, so let's
Mhm.
just move on. No, I don't believe that at all. I believe forgiveness is releasing that person, that feeling, that anger, that hatred, that upset. You're really letting it go. It's releasing it, and that allows you to be free of it, and you can go on and live your best, fullest life. But if you carry that negative energy, that negative emotion, it's only hurting you. You know, they're living
Mhm.
their life. They don't care. And I don't need him to even know that I've worked on forgiving him. So again, back to the journal, I would write and write, I forgive you, I forgive you, I forgive you. And sometimes you get to a point with a person that you're like, okay, I feel like I'm done. I feel like I'm okay now with that person. But then there might be somebody else that pops up in your life that you're like a parent, like a
Mhm.
sibling, and then you've got to work on that again. It's really a way of cleansing yourself. To me, it's like a release. It's a letting go. It's like I let you go. I let you have no power here anymore, as Dorothy would say in The Wizard of Oz to the Wicked Witch.
I know.
Yeah.
My cousin is a drama director, and he has shown that play quite a few times. So I've seen it. I know exactly what you're
Mm-hmm,
talking
mm-hmm,
about. Um, you also talk about your nutrition.
mm-hmm.
Being a coach, I think. Uh, I think you say you're a certified holistic nutritionist. So tell us a little bit. How can one improve their health through nutrition? That's
Oh, yes.
something that I'd
Well,
like for you to expound on.
yeah, I believe that food is medicine, and that if we our bodies need nutrients and water and good foods, and if we feed them right, if we feed our bodies right, our bodies will thrive. Unfortunately, in this day and age, there's so much confusion about food. There's so much stuff, processed food, packaged food, modified food, fast food. I mean, it's just, what are we eating? What are we eating? We don't even know what we're eating. And is it even real? But if we can go back to real foods, our vegetables, our fruits, our nuts, and we don't need to eat a ton of meat. I like to think that we do an 80-20, 80% plant-based, 20% animal proteins. We don't need a ton of animal proteins. And not to get too far into it, but there's a lot wrong with our animal processing. And as a meditation, as a spiritual person, the torture really that our animals undergo when they're being slaughtered for food is pretty awful. And if you think that you're eating that trauma in a way, I hate to get too far off the
That's
beaten
okay.
path,
Go ahead on.
but it's you're like you're eating an animal that has suffered and or existed in horrible conditions, in the small cages or however they're being raised. And it's just like, wow, that's going into our bodies and that's not good for us. So eating organic, eating clean, eating humanely raised animals, because it's okay that we're eating them. I mean, we're meant to, we're hunter gatherers, but thinking, just taking a beat and saying, wow, what do I want to put in my body? And I can get very specific and I say, we need to drink a lot of water.
Mhm.
That's one thing I would tell everybody. If there's one thing that you do, try to get in your body weight in water in ounces. 64 ounces is really good, but lots and lots of water. It's so good for us. It hydrates us, it heals us. Our bodies just need water. And I don't think we drink enough. And some of us drink a lot of soda and things like that, which has nothing good in it. So I would start with water. Water is really good. If you want to start with one thing, start with water.
My my daughter's gonna love listening to this podcast because she gets on us all the time about what we're eating, And
Hmm.
most and you're right. I realize that, but most people like that meat, that meat would be the 80% and the other part would be the 20%.
Yeah. Well,
So
there's
I
some philosophies that we should be carnivores. I don't know. But a lot of times we have to watch out for sodium. There's so much
Mhm,
sodium in the
mhm.
packaged foods that
Yeah.
it's good if we can cut back on our salts. There's so much sugar in most of the processed packaged foods. So those two things right there are really not good for us in excess. And it's in excess in most things. It's how they preserve things, all that salt.
Je- Jennifer, your story is so interesting that because you've dealt with actually uh, going through the trauma of I think you said divorce and bankruptcy
Yeah, that was
and
really tough. Yeah.
yeah, and health issues, but you're also into holistic nutrition. So there's so much that that entails your story. So I am curious, because as a uh, retired pastor, one of the reasons I started my podcast was to uh, do something that I thought would be it would encourage, inspire, and hopefully transforms some lives. And that's the
Hmm.
reason I ask guests to kind of share their experience and the events in their lives that can benefit someone else, and to also share how these same experiences uh, have helped them in their daily challenges. So, if you were talking to listeners of this podcast who have, gone through some of the same things that you have gone through, what would be something? What would be something that you would tell them? And I'm not asking you to go so far in detail, but give them a couple of pointers.
I like to say that nothing stays the same.
Okay.
Everything changes. So if you're in that really dark place, it doesn't last forever. You won't be in that place forever. It will change. It can get better. And sometimes I think we're so stuck in it that we can't see that there is a way out. And the other thing I would say is my problems were so big. They were just so big at the time. The financial, the everything was, to me, it was huge. And so I couldn't, if I had thought about how big it was, I don't know what I would have done. So I just broke things down into really tiny baby steps. And I would just say, okay, what do I need to do right now? What is my very next little baby step that I can take? And it's like one step, one step, one step, one step. Don't worry about getting to the top of the hill. Just take those little steps. And I think if you break it down, then it is manageable and you will move forward in little baby steps. It's okay.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Listeners, don't go to place because Jennifer's going to come back and and share more of her story with us. But first, let me ask you, Jennifer, how can listeners of this podcast learn more about you, or if you have a book, how can they get your book, or anything that you want to share? How can they access this?
Yeah, sure. So the book is called Unbreakable Spirit, and it's inspiring stories about women. And there's a number of co-authors in there. And I think it's very inspirational because it's these women all sharing these really tough things that they've gone through and come through on the other side. And out of that, and that I think you can still get that on Amazon. And then I decided that I wanted to do my own podcast, and it's called Unbreakable Spirit, because I wanted to take those stories and I wanted to get it out there to people so
Mhm.
they could hear that people do struggle, but they get through it. We can get through it. So that's the whole point of my podcast. So again, the podcast is on all the typical podcast
Uh-huh.
platforms, Unbreakable Spirit. Beautiful stories, anywhere from health stories to mental health stories to cancer survivors to just all kinds of things. They're really, and these women that I talk to just touch my heart so much. They're amazing. From a nutrition, health, wellness standpoint, I have a website. It's www.sevencompany.com, and that's the number seven, not seven spelled out, sevencompany.com. I'm on Instagram at Seven Company Weight Loss. Facebook is Seven Company. So seven everything. I have lots of sevens in all my names. So I'm on LinkedIn, uh, but my website would probably be the ideal way. And I do free discovery calls, free consultations. If you just want to chat about where you're at and your health, I'll
Mhm.
try to point you in some directions of what I think, might get you back on the right foot.
Okay, that sounds great. Um, you talk a lot about resilience. You share a lot about meditation and forgiveness. All of that you talk about, and you've already shared a lot of it. What I want to ask you is, uh, what are the benefits of meditation? How do one meditate, and uh, how do you forgive someone? Those
Mm.
are important things that people deal with every day. And being in the ministry, it is certainly something that I try to advise and talk to people about. So tell us a
Yeah.
little bit about this.
Well, regarding meditation, there's many, many, many different forms of meditation. And sometimes the easiest way to start is to find a guided meditation. There are many of them on YouTube. There are plenty of apps out there now. There's one called Calm. There's another one called Insight Timer, where you can join, and there's all kinds of meditations. So you can find just relaxation meditations. I have recorded meditations on my YouTube channel.
Hmm.
I have some of them. Mine are more related to getting in touch with your body, loving yourself, loving your body, because we need to learn how to do that. So it can be very easy and very relaxing. That sometimes there's meditations to help you go to sleep at night. And then there's also what I call the mantra meditation, which I was referring to a little bit earlier, where I give you a sound, a word. Maybe here's an example. There's one, and it's so hum, which if you translate it, I think it means I am. And I can guide someone through that. But if you just close your eyes and you breathe and you just inside your mind, you are like, so hum, so hum, so
Hmm.
hum, so hum, and
Hmm.
set your timer for, sometimes you can only do 5 minutes. So maybe you
Hmm.
start with 5 minutes, you build up to 10, you build up to 20. 20 minutes is wonderful if you can do it. But
Hmm.
that coming back to that word kind of gets you out of your thoughts. When you were like, oh, yeah, grocery store, got to do some homework, got to do this. Wait, so hum, so hum. I'm bringing myself back. I'm bringing myself back. So I think
Hmm.
some people find that's a way to feel like they're not so scattered, because otherwise they just get edgy and it's like my thoughts are too much. So it brings you back. And there are proven benefits to meditation, lowers blood pressure, helps you be more calm. And then, as I said before, as you start to get in touch with what your body really desires, there can be longer term health benefits. A lot of studies. It can help you with weight loss. So there's a lot going on with meditation, and I think more and more people are recognizing that, and it's becoming much more available and recognized and more mainstream than it used to be. Yeah.
You talk about in this, you talk about connecting with your body.
Mm.
And I just heard you mention that as you were sharing. So how can one connect with his or her body? How's that? Talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, so I don't think growing up, I grew up in a household where we really weren't in tune with our bodies. It's like not realizing that really what you're eating really makes a difference with what your body can and cannot do. And I went on a little retreat when I was on my healing journey, and I did some yoga, and well, yoga is a wonderful way to begin to connect with your body and the practice of thanking your body for all that it does for us. We take our bodies for granted. Our heart beats how many times a day? And we don't have to tell it to beat. We don't have to tell our lungs to breathe. We don't have to tell our body to digest, but it does it. And it's a miracle. It's a miracle. And so beginning to say thank you and appreciate our hands that can write, our legs that carry us, our brain that works for us, our eyes that can see. It's beautiful. And when I was doing that retreat, I cried and I cried and I cried because I was like, I've never appreciated this amazing body that we all are given. And for those of us that struggle with weight loss, sometimes we hate our body. We resent our body. It's like, I'm ugly. I'm fat. I don't like myself. I hate myself. And we're mean. So if we can start to change that and love this body that we've been gifted, it's a powerful thing. And sometimes we just don't even think about it. We don't think about it.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Well said. Well said. Well, there you have it. Jennifer Seven, who is a co-author of the international bestseller Unbreakable Spirit, found on Amazon, and she has a podcast, Unbreakable Spirit, inspiring stories of women surviving and thriving. I want to let you know that Jennifer has more than 15 years experience within the health and wellness field, along with giving back to the community through her participation with nonprofit organizations. How thrilled and excited we are to have Jennifer share with us today. Again, Jennifer, thank you so very much for coming
Uh,
on the Deal by Me podcast.
you are very welcome. And thank you again for having me.